It's been 20 years since all eyes were on Florida. Now Texas could take that center stage, with many predicting that it could be flipped blue for the first time in 44 years. In 3 of the most recent statewide elections, Texans have been hitching toward the Democratic Party. President Obama lost by 16 points in 2012, Clinton by 9 in 2016, and Beto O'Rourke lost his 2018 Senate bid by less than 3 points. Joining me now is former Congressman and presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke. Beto, I have to tell you, thank you for joining me, but I'm a betting gal, and I actually believe that Texas is on the verge. Talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing.
Yeah, to paraphrase Tim Russert, Texas, Texas, Texas. You know, this state, more than any other, holds the key to defeating Trump and the ability to forever reorder the political landscape in America. If on election night or whenever the votes are finally tallied, Texas comes in for the Democratic nominee, Joe Biden, for the first time in 44 years, since 1976, regardless of how Trump feels about the results, this country will have to accept that the Trump era is over, as is Trumpism. And we will have the ability, with congressional majorities, a new Democratic majority in the state legislature in Texas, to enact a very ambitious agenda for this country, which is exactly what we need. And as you pointed out, the trends, the trajectory are in our favor. And you might have seen this poll that just came out yesterday. It is like the 10th or 12th poll to show Joe Biden ahead or within 1 point of Donald Trump in the state of Texas. So this is totally possible and completely up to us. And that's why our group, Powered by People, is trying to call every single Democratic voter in the state of Texas. We've made over 24 million voter contact attempts so far to make sure that they get involved and help decide the most important election of our lives.
So this is what folks don't realize, that Texas, in my opinion, is where California was 25 years ago under Pete Wilson. Their Pete Wilson is Greg Abbott. He has created such chaos within the immigrant communities that he is basically the one that is helping organize and mobilize. How do you see his atrocious show me your papers laws, SB 4, translating into the community? And do you see that as an opportunity for galvanizing the vote?
Yeah. So Greg Abbott and the Republican majority in the state house that's about to be defeated by an extraordinary cast of Democratic women running for office who will win that majority. They're responsible for the show me your papers laws in Texas, which, based on the color of your skin or the accent with which you speak, might force you to have to show your papers to local law enforcement, not only instilling fear in our communities like El Paso, where I live, that's 85% Mexican-American, and mixed immigration status families across the board, but demonstrably makes us less safe. Fewer people trust law enforcement when they fear they may be deported by reporting a crime or testifying in a trial. But then there's this, and I really want your viewers to understand this. More than 13,000 of my fellow Texans have died from COVID because our governor made decisions that put their lives at risk. And it's not affecting all of us equally. If you go to McAllen, to Brownsville, to Starr County, communities that are 90 to 95% Mexican-American, people are dying so quickly and in such great numbers that they are stacking the bodies in refrigerated FEMA trailers because they've run out of room in the morgues and in the funeral homes. And so in your previous extraordinary panel, Alicia Garza talked about disposable communities. And those Mexican-American majority communities in Texas feel disposable under the leadership of Greg Abbott. And it's up to all of us to connect the dots and to say, people in your community are dying. Folks are out of work because this economy cannot reopen because of the decisions that this governor and this Republican state legislature have made.
Well, and I think that what is interesting about Texas is that you have young people at the forefront of a lot of these conversations making that case, changing and actually telling people that government does not have to leave you behind. Can you speak a little bit about these demographic changes and how it's not just the Latino community and the African-American community, but there's also a rising Pan-Asian American community of about 1 million voters, that it seems almost like it's a perfect storm?
It's really beautiful. There are more Vietnamese language speakers in Houston, Texas, than in any other part of the world except for Vietnam. They speak over 120 different languages in the public schools in Houston, Texas. It's the most diverse city in the United States of America. And it's really reflective of the diversity and the genius of Texas, that people from the planet over have chosen us and made their home here. And it's those young people that you just described about, the young volunteers with Voto Latino, or JOLT, an organization here in Texas that is focused on turning out young millennial Latinos and Latinas across the state that are making it happen. When we won more votes than any Democrat in the history of the state of Texas in 2018, that charge was led by young people. They turned out at a rate 500% greater than the last midterm election. And their urgency is so fierce and so powerful on the issues of immigration, on climate, on criminal justice, on making sure everyone can access health care, and that our largest provider of mental health care services is not the county jail system any longer in the state of Texas. They are making it happen. And so I'm very optimistic, despite these dark days, that Texas is going to come through, not only for the people of this state, but for the people of this country.
Well, and I think from the work that Voto Latino does, we register voters and we identify hot spots. We have, as of this morning, registered over 287,000 voters in key battleground states. But, Beto, what I found really enlightening about what's happening in Texas is, of those numbers, 147,000 are coming from Texas. People are paying attention. And what I think the rest of the country doesn't realize is how people have shifted what was before a solidly red state with the issues that they care about. Let me throw something up so you can react to them.
Yeah.
If you can see, some of the top issues among Texas voters say that it's coronavirus that you mentioned, healthcare, stopping discrimination, creating jobs, and more importantly, protecting the immigrant rights. Speak to how this does not, taking a step back, you could be talking right now about Oregon, or you could be talking about New York, but this is Texas.
Yeah, it's really extraordinary against the context of the last 44 years of a solidly red state, at least in terms of the presidential elections, and then the last 24, 30 years in terms of state government. But as you said, this state is rapidly changing. More than 2 million people have registered to vote since the last presidential election just in the state of Texas. Our organization, Powered by People, has registered 77,000 people just in the last 3 months in the state of Texas. Net new voters added to the rolls in a state that is a minority majority state, and in a state that is trending increasingly progressive. And you see that in the new members of Congress, Colin Allred, Lizzie Panel-Fletcher, 17 African-American women elected to judicial positions in Harris County, literally changing the face of criminal justice in the largest county in the state of Texas. And you're going to see it in a Democratic takeover of the state legislature, which will, in 2021, begin to dismantle the infrastructure of systematic voter suppression and intimidation against Black and brown voters in Texas. And then watch out. This is a brand new state that has so much more to give to this country.
So, Congressman, now that you're talking about registering voters, I have to put up there that Stacey Abrams was registering voters before she ran for a larger office. Are you thinking about running for governor?
I'm not. I'm really focused on this election and doing everything I can to help these state House candidates win that majority and helping Joe Biden become the first Democratic nominee since Jimmy Carter in 1976 to win the state of Texas. So that's got to be our focus. The stakes are too great. This election is too important to think about anything else right now.
Well, Congressman, I wish you would rattle that cage of Greg Abbott. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.